Thanks. Yeah.
You get your 25 minutes, so
okay, it's fine. All right, so I'm going to be talking to you about increasing student engagement in large classes. So what's on the menu today? I'm a food scientist, so we speak of flavors and things. The ingredients that I'm going to serve, we'll look first at the landscape, then we're going to talk about plickers in action, crossword puzzles, and online journals. And then I'm going to share a little bit about the student overview. So if we look at the landscape, I teach a first year module, and my students are 122 this year. It's a lot of students, and you can imagine how daunting it must be to give feedback to all students. And this module has 13 practical sessions where we go to the pilot plant, we manufacture real food products, and then we use different technologies. We've got 5 theory periods allocated to us per week, and then we also have 3 semester tests, what we call these summative assessments, and then we have a FISA. So the inherent challenges that one faces when you have such a large class is that they are normally time and resource constraints. So you need to finish the syllabus, and then this results in what we call surface learning. And most of us are accustomed to the teaching of the first industrial revolution, where the student is just the recipient, and then the lecturer or the professor is the sage of the stage, knows it all. So there is no engagement. You've got 122 students, all of them, they are sitting, listening to you. And what we normally find is that our timetable is really packed. You can imagine a student sitting from 8:30 to 1 o'clock. We are sitting in class, lecturers come in and go out. We are expected to consume this knowledge. They are not able to learn because it's just surface learning. And what we find in such cases is that feedback is often inadequate, and the students in the 4th industrial revolution, they say Generation Z, like anybody of us, would want to know, how am I doing? How am I performing? Rather than receiving the bad news at the end of the year that you were not successful or you did not pass. And also in this situation, we have a problem whereby there's lack of interaction and engagement between the lecturer and the students amongst themselves. I normally hear colleagues say, I just can't get the students to answer a question. I asked them, I just covered material, what we covered last week, and then now I'm asking them a question, they are not answering me, they just keep quiet. And I said to my colleagues, I think I've got some solutions how we can get the students to engage. So I'm going to be talking to you briefly about the tools that I use in order to engage the students. These are not really a cast in stone or be it all, but this is what is working for me at the moment. Maybe next year we'll want to look at something different. So I'm a food scientist, so I was told that when you come to these presentations, you need to have something that is called a theoretical framework. So as we normally go to the lab and just manufacture stuff. So I did some homework, and then just to look at the differences between a summative and formative assessment. So the goal of the summative assessment is to evaluate the students' learning at the end of the instructional unit by comparing it against a benchmark or a standard, how many students passed last year. So this is basically looking at the statistics. Whereas on the other hand, if we're looking at the formative assessment, the goal is to monitor the students' learning and provide ongoing feedback that can be used by the students to improve their learning. But also, to add, the lecturer can also use the feedback from the students in order to improve the lesson planning, what is working in my course or what is not working. And if you look at the summative assessment, the evaluation is after the learning process. After you've given the students a textbook and you've dumped all the knowledge, then you're going to evaluate them. But on the formative assessment, we are concerned about evaluating the students during the learning process, even before you finish your syllabus or you finish your course. And summative assessment, we want to assign a grade, whereas on the formative assessment, we want to monitor the learning process, and there are certain questions that arises then. And if you look just in summary, the formative assessment, it's part of the puzzle. So this is how you assess the student as part of the puzzle, whereas in terms of the summative assessment, you include complete chapters in terms of the content, so you'll finish the content. So if I look at the theoretical framework, which is basically underpinned by Black and Williams, who have written really a lot on formative feedback. So they say the formative assessment has a positive impact on the student's achievement. So what I will show you in these slides, and it's something that I've also experienced. So once the students know that they are doing something good, they want to keep on doing something good because they feel a sense of achievement. So in literature, pedagogy is effective when teaching activities focus on participation. So like what I'm doing now is basically me dumping all the information, right? But we need to have a situation where we participate, everybody participates. In the end, we're going to have a question and answer section. So feedback, so you'll give me feedback, how am I presented, on what do you think in terms of your ideas. So going forward, we need to have a pedagogy that is student-centered. It's not only about the professor or the lecturer knowing everything and just dumping it to the students, because I also believe that the students, they've got something to bring into the table. So if we look at the theory by Vygotsky, so they say that the students bring in knowledge in terms of when, before they even come to class. I think it was mentioned in the session in the morning that most of the learning happens outside the classroom. So this is just the theoretical framework that I wanted to show you. But the questions that I've asked myself when I was busy lecturing is, what can we do better as lecturers, as facilitators? And how much are the students actually improving in their learning process? And can we get the students to actually think about their learning process, to think about what is it that they are learning? And for this, I then selected just a few tools that I use in my course, just to share with you how do I then try to answer these questions. So the first tool that I use what we call Blickers. Blickers are basically an audience response system which is paper-based. It takes from what we call the clickers, the clickers that people need to use. The nice thing about this tool is that for this one, the students do not need anything. They do not need any device. You can have the paper. So I'm going to discuss that. And then the other thing that I've used, which my students like mostly, is what we call crossword puzzles, solving crossword puzzles. And the last one is the individual journal reflections, which is also found on Blackboard. So let us look at the Blickers. So this paper-based technology, I use it in 3 different forms. So firstly, when I'm going to start a new content, I want to check the background knowledge of the students, right? Whether do they understand a certain term, what is fermentation? Does everybody understand what fermentation is? And then I can also use it in the middle of my courses to correct or to check misconceptions based on what I have already covered. And then the third section is when I'm doing a review at the end to see if I've got everybody understanding the same material. So how does this Blickers work? Basically, you sign up on a website online, and then you have these cards that you can print. So what I've elected to do is to print and laminate this card. So each card is unique to a particular student. You've got a number for each card, and it has 4 options that you can select from, which is A, B, C, and D. And then you as a lecturer can create questions. So this is just a question that I've developed for my students. And then once the question is posed, so I can show the question on the screen, and then I will come with my mobile device to scan their answers. And this is how it basically works. So the students, they get in their cards, and then I come in, then I scan, and once I've scanned the answers, they will then show on the projector on the screen, on the options. So over the years, I started working with Blickers last year. And one of the challenges that I faced was that I had 120 students, and the Plickers cards that I could download were 63. So I wanted to have everybody engaging. So, but then I came up with an idea to, what if I can print based on color codes? So I have first a batch which receive green cards, and then the other batch receives yellow cards. So then I create my questions for these two sets of cards. Then I can scan the first batch on the green first, and then the other one on the yellow, as you can see on the large classes. And then I have everybody participating. The nice thing about this is that once now you start to engage the students, everybody becomes awake, and they tell me everybody wants to be scared because everybody will be participating in terms of their answer. And what this does is that it also takes the shy student on board, because you don't have to say anything, you just raise in your cards. So we are familiar with sometimes teaching, when you are lecturing and you are answering, asking students questions. There's only that one student who always wants to answer, and then the discussion becomes now a dialogue between you and that student who's answering. But in this case, I'm trying to get everybody to participate, all the students to be there, and you actually don't have to give each student a card. What you can do, you can also make them to work in groups, and then once you can assign each card to a group, and then you can see how it works for you. But for me, I wanted to take everybody on board to make sure that everybody engages, and then once, that's why I printed each card. And the nice thing is that with this low-cost technology, I printed my cards. It's just a picture, didn't come with them, and then I laminated them. So after the session, I can take back my cards and I can reuse them again and again. And now going into the fourth industrial revolution, yes, this is the card that you have. So going into the fourth industrial revolution, because here I'm basically working with a large number of students, but perhaps some of you have got less than 40 students. You could also assign each card to a student, that every time you do this set of activity, each student would have that particular card. And the beautiful thing about this is that you can also put in the students' names there on the website, so that throughout the year you can be able to track the progress of that particular student. And then you can get data in terms of how is this student performing in terms of understanding the material. So what I like here is that this is a class that I conducted in February. It was on a BTech class, and then you can also see in terms of the students that are participating and how are they doing in class. So basically, you can also have some data that you can use or generate from this app. So this app, you only have two options in terms of the questions that you can ask. It can either be survey type questions or multiple choice based questions. Right, so this is Plickers. Are we together? So I'm going to move now to the second part, what I've used. So the other part that I've used is crossword puzzles. Why am I using crossword puzzles? A module like food science and technology has some of the terminologies that are difficult. Some of them is fermentation, centrifugation, pasteurization, and sometimes these terminologies, these students, they've never heard them from anyone before, and they do not have any connections with these terminologies. So there is a website, it's just that the video will take long. I can share it afterwards. There's a website that I can use to create crossword puzzles. So I've created a couple of crossword puzzles. And then what I did, I asked the students to form random teams of 6 students per team. And then I asked them to give themselves names. Some of them, they will say Vusi and the girls, and Vusi and whatnot, whatever names that they wanted to give. And then this, we wanted them to have active collaboration. So the rule is that we are not allowed to look at your notes or to go on Google and search, but talk to the person that is next to you. Talk amongst themselves. As much as we want students who are digital natives, but it's also important that we foster the human aspects because in the industry you're gonna need to collaborate with people, so you must be able to collaborate with other people. So this part is part of the collaboration. And what we then did say, we gave them 25 minutes to solve a crossword puzzles. So there's 30 questions. As you can see here, again, I use different color coding in terms of the papers so that I can give them different puzzles at the same time. But then in the end, everybody is going to finish 3 puzzles. And then we say the 3 top teams will get an incentive. As Prof. Dan, we normally give them chocolates. So I see, I need to downgrade to Smarties for smart people. And from here, we can also see what the students understand in terms of the terminologies. And for now, we've been getting good results. This also makes the students to collaborate, and also they are learning in a fun way. So we can see, before we can even proceed, that certain terminologies the students, they do not understand. So we need to emphasize on those terminologies. Right, then the last part that I want to talk about is the learning journals. This is one of my favorites because I haven't really seen a lot of people doing it at CPUT, but it would be nice to have more people doing it. In the past 2 weeks, I was in Pretoria, then I went to Zim, Harare last week for a conference. And then for 2 weeks, I have not had interactions with my students in terms of face-to-face. What I've done, I've created videos, screencasts for them, which are uploaded on YouTube and also linked to Blackboard. So once, on a given day, I would then have them having a schedule that on this day you need to go and watch this video, and then afterwards they've got an assessment that they do on Blackboard. So they've got a Blackboard, call it a Blackboard test, and after the test the students are requested to write a learning journal to reflect on their learning process. Basically them telling us what do they understand, what are the things that they did not understand, and then I come in and then I give them the feedback. So I mark this based on the rubric. Here we're not looking for people who are correct. We want to see if you can be able to reflect on your learning process, because they were learning on an individual basis when the lecturer was not present. So some of the students, they tell me that I didn't understand the video, but I then went to look for more information in order for me to be able to understand the concept well. Some of them, they say, I knew this concept before I even started the video, so I kind of had some background information. So it's the students then reflecting, and based on this, because it's Blackboard, we can also look at the rubric at the end and see how are the students doing again. So we are also generating data there. But what is more important is that I then have a view of what my students think about the teaching practices that I'm trying to implement. Because I may think they are copying when they are studying individually, but it's not the case. But so far the students are able to look at the videos, then they can watch them at the time that they want to watch them. And they can repeat them again and again. Unlike me being in class, sometimes I don't repeat certain things, but with the video they can repeat the videos. So these are the things that they are telling me. And they are also telling me that they need more videos. So they are giving me feedback in terms of what they need, and I'm also giving them feedback in terms of how they are reflecting in their learning process. So these are some of the extracts that I've just picked out on a survey that I conducted with them. So they like to obtain instant feedback, especially with the case of clickers, because they can really see what is the correct answer, as Prof demonstrated in the morning. Sometimes if you get an incorrect answer, then it's an opportunity for you to learn and see what was the correct answer. And also with the crossword puzzles, the students like the fact that they are able to think for themselves without their devices, and they are able to collaborate and work with other people. So ladies and gentlemen, these are just some of the tools that I use in order to give feedback, in order to receive feedback from the students. There is plenty, and also this is not just a casting stone. So this is just some of the things that are really working for me. Thank you very much for your time.
We have some time for questions. sound like an old talking to a young man. But thank you for being so deep and the reflection on what you do. I think it's very encouraging that you've taken all these efforts to improve your scholarly practice. So thank you for that. I'm inspired by your spirit. And I'm also, not a question but a comment, I'm glad that you've come to the point where we are not using the digital divide as an excuse or for going that way around clickers and those things. Because too often people will say, no, but not all our students don't have mobile phones, or so that might be a reality for many, and we understand that. But too often to me is an opportunity or an excuse for people not to go that way. The fact that Prof. Cronje spoke about the buddy system will work. So if you don't have the technology, sit alongside someone who does. So just a big thank you.
Thanks.
Just thinking of the crossword puzzles.
Sorry?
So the crossword puzzles. So how do you put that together?
So there is a website. So I first designed the questions or the terminologies that I want to have. So I'd have that on an Excel, on a Word document. Then I can convert it to a website. So there's a website I didn't show it here. I didn't show it here. So I can share that website with you, so you can then creating the crossword puzzles. And the nice thing is you can also get the answers as a lecturer. Then what I normally do is that after we've done the exercise, because I want the students to collaborate, and it's a limited time, they've got 25 minutes. But afterwards, I put the puzzles on Blackboard. They can then go and solve them individually at home when they want to solve them. So it's a nice way of playing, and they really like it. So what I've done also was to try, some people suggest that you can finish a chapter and then have a puzzles. But for me, I like the fact that I wanted to do at least 3 chapters and then combine these 3 so that the students can be able to have a variety of options. So if I have 1 chapter, sometimes it just limits the puzzles.
Yeah, I have a question for you around your learning journals. I saw that your student had 1, 2, 3. It was they had it. Do you give leading questions? Because I find if it's open-ended, sometimes the student doesn't have the parameters within which to reflect. So do you give them key questions that you want answers to?
Yes, thanks for that question. So when I started with the learning journal, I said to the students, reflect. And then to my surprise, I got some people reflecting in 2 sentences, and then I was not really getting the information that I wanted to get out of them. So I started to give them leading questions, but then I say to them, we are not limited within these parameters. But the nice thing that I've done for me that has worked is also to give them a word count, to say reflect within 300 to 400 words. Because I wanted to get an idea in terms of how they are feeling. So some other people, we are not good in terms of expressing ourselves. So some people, they just want, as much as there's a rubric that they have access to, which shows what is a proficient student going to get. People were just, I need to complete for the sake of completing. So they were giving me 2 sentences, but I then started to have like clear instructions to them. So that's why you would see some of them, they just write in terms of point 1, this is what I think, point 2. So they are also answering the question, but at least they can reflect. So this is where I started to see them kind of reflecting, and some other people, they give you more than what you have asked in terms of their reflections.
Do you know the name of the website for the crosswords? We've got the link, just the name, then we'll just look it up.
No, I just
okay.
But I can give it to you.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
Guys, before you leave, there's a slight change in the